Also to make the volume higher here, because last time it was very low again.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam shrijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam shrijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam shrijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam shrijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam shrijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanamdharmasya taratmanam shrijamyaham. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Dana Abhaya Sharanara Vindare Barisana Edina Jamini Jagire
Vipalase vinu kripana durajana chapala sukhala balagire
Vipalese vinu kripana durajana chapala sukala balagire
Edanayo vana putra parijana itekiya cheparati dire
Edhanaya vana putra parijana etekiya cheparati tire
Kamala dala jala jivana tala mala vajahu hari padani dire
Kamaladala Jala Jivana Talamala Vajahu Haripada Nitire
Shravana kirtana smarana vandana pada sevana dasyare
Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare
Pujana saki jana atmani vedana Govinda dasa vilasare
Pujana Saki Jana Atmani Vedana Govinda Dasa Bilasare
Ajapure mana Srinandanandana Abhaya charanara vindare
Ajahure Mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare
Jaya Sriman Narayana
Jaya Shriman Narayana
Everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
Om Hri Om. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the latest Satsangha live stream of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. And indeed, it is my absolute pleasure to be here with you today. And we will be continuing with what we have been doing for quite a few weeks now. I believe this is session 7 of the Purusha Sukta. Possibly the most important, certainly one of the most important parts of Rig Veda, which in itself is the oldest literature on earth. There is no work of literature that is older than Rig Veda. This is agreed upon by all scholars worth their salt. If they disagree with that, then they weren't a very good scholar, because all the best scholars on earth agree with this fact. Rig Veda is the first writing of humanity. There is nothing older. It was first written down approximately 3800 BC. Modern scholars from Max Muller on, many of them say, roughly 14 to 1800 BC. And it's sad to me that there are many Hindus who still repeat this, even though all the latest evidence shows that that's a joke. It was written way before then. For myself, indeed, as a scholar, as a person who has a PhD in languages and cultures of Asia, I and others have actually determined that the time that it was first written down was probably around 3800 BC. And it's older than that. That's something all scholars agree on, actually. That before it was written down in actual written form, it was carried down orally from teacher to pupil, teacher to pupil, teacher to pupil for a very long time before then. When was it first carried down, taught to a pupil? Nobody knows, including myself, including anyone. No one knows. Every scholar will agree on that also, that you can't trace back when Rig Veda was first uttered. For followers of Sanatana Dharma, of course, we understand that Rig Veda, as is true for all the Vedic literature, is what is technically called, and this is a technical Sanskrit term that people now know because I've used it in all of my teachings for 37 years, Apaurushaya. This is a technical term that we find that means very simply, Parushaya comes from Purusha, Parushaya meaning of man, of person. A is the negation thereof, so Aparushaya, not of person. So in other words, it is not man-made. It is not written by a human being. It was not composed. It was not created. It didn't come out of the fanciful imagination of anyone. Rather, we understand that the nature of the Vedic scriptures is that they are indeed aparushaya. That is, they're not created by any human being, but also they are nitya, that they are eternally present as well. They could also be termed Sanatana as well, Sanatana Shastra, that the Shastra, the holy utterances of the Vedic scriptures, have always existed. They indeed pre-exist time itself. So thus they're eternal. In our path, that is the path of Sanatana Dharma, the Vedic tradition, several different names for it. Today people use this meaningless misnomer, Hinduism, which is a very recent construct. It's meaningless, doesn't exist in the Vedic scriptures. But in any case, this path focuses precisely on the eternal. Thus, eternal is in its very name itself, Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. And we know that truthfully, those things that are of ultimate value are those things that are eternal. And what is meant by eternal? Means they're true. Means they're real. See, we know people have varying degrees of understanding of Sanatana Dharma. And we know that, of course, we tend to say that, oh, this world is illusory. This world is illusory. And some people make the dire mistake of thinking that what that means is, oh, it's not here. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination, that you can walk through a wall. No. The world does indeed have existence, but its meaning pales in comparison to that which is truly the eternal. And that's the understanding of Sanatana Dharma, is that which is of true value, that which is of true importance, is that which always has been, is now, and always shall be, and which will be assailed by no one and nothing. Thus, the very name of our religion itself is Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. Now, why am I focusing on this so much? You'll see where I'm leading to, actually. We also believe that we, as living beings, are Sanatana, that our Atman is something that is of the nature of the eternal, that never was there a time when we came into being, and never will there be a time when we shall cease to be, that we, as living beings, are eternal soul. And that when we leave the body, it is simply something that is a temporary instance of something akin of going from one set of clothing to, oh, the clothing gets old and tattered. You put on a new set, and then on like this. The clothing comes and goes, but we are who we are. Right now, what color is this? Blue. I could be wearing red. I could be wearing white. I could be wearing any color. But I am me. I persist. In the same way, we can have a specific form in accordance with our karma, in accordance with our free will, in accordance with the will of the gods and of God. We will have a certain form, certain body. But that physical body eventually disappears. Oh, but we as living beings, we as Atman, we go on. We are eternal. We never cease to be. We never ever cease to be. Now, this is understood as one of the primary teachings of Bhagavad Gita, of Sanatana Dharma. But why am I revisiting this today? I'm revisiting this today very specifically because of what I'm about to speak about before we dive into the Purusha Sukta. And that is a very, very heartbreaking, for people who are human at least, for people who are not monsters, a very heartbreaking event that occurred several days ago. And that is that a quote-unquote political figure, he never ran for office, he didn't do anything like this. Rather, he had nonviolent political views, and he wished to share those views by very peacefully sitting with others, often on college campuses, and having civil debate. This was someone who never once, and I challenge anyone there who is going to dare to disagree to show me evidence to the contrary, who never called for violence, who never spewed hatred against others because of who they were, because of their race, because of their nationality, etc. This was someone who wished to engage in peaceful debate with people and would debate with them respectfully. I'm, of course, talking about Charlie Kirk, who was murdered, viciously murdered, actually. Viciously murdered with his family there. And what was he doing? He was sitting in a chair on a college campus. You know, college campuses are the opposite now of what they used to be and what they were created for. The idea of a college campus used to be that as long as you didn't call for violence or murder or breaking the law or overthrow of the government, it was a place where people could share ideas, even if those ideas were diametrically opposed to each other, and people wouldn't hit each other, wouldn't engage in violence. Oh, you could raise your volume if you so desired, but people would engage in peaceful debate. This was the idea. This was the idea of a college campus at one point. Not anymore, apparently. Apparently, you can be sitting in a chair, holding a microphone, not yelling, not cursing, not calling for any violence, just having a debate of ideas. And you can be murdered in front of your family and in front of thousands of innocent students. This is what happened with Charlie Kirk. Now, I never personally met him. I had opportunities, but I never personally met the man. I was aware of his work. I had watched videos of him indeed engaging in his work. And that is just having debates with people on ideas. People could agree with him, disagree with him, and he was civil with them all. All you need to do is go to his YouTube channel or anywhere else. You can watch hundreds of hours of him. And if you've never seen Charlie Kirk in action, you can, in fact, I challenge you, if you've never seen him, go see what he does. And it will break your heart even more. He was a man who was civil with any person who approached him. And he would engage in a debate, a real debate of ideas. And how horrific is it that for those individuals who know about his life, of whom there are thousands, from what I have heard, from what everyone has heard, and there's zero evidence to the contrary, in real life, when he wasn't doing debates, he was the nicest man on earth. He was someone who truly loved his family. He had 2 daughters, very young, I forget their ages. He truly loved his daughters. He was with his family as much as he could be. When people spoke with him, he was calm, he was civil. Whether you liked him or didn't like him, he would give you his time. This man spent all of his time doing his mission. And yet, some monster out there decided to kill him. And even worse than that, other monsters wearing human skin celebrated it. They're all paying the price now, and actually that's barely even begun. Not even 1% of what's going to happen to these people who celebrated murder and terrorism. And what comes is what they deserve. But how sad that for those who didn't hear this, I actually heard this. Again, his family was there with him. They tended to be, because again, they were a real family. They were together as much as they could be. His wife and his 2 daughters loved him so much that when he went from campus to campus, they would accompany him so they could all be together as family. And the saddest thing was when the shot rings out, and it was loud. You can hear it on the video. And it was so loud that one of his daughters cried out something to the effect of, "Oh, what was that?" She was scared, and she tried to run to her father, who was there bleeding to death and then died. One of his daughters tried to run to him for comfort, not knowing that the shot was there to kill her very own father. Oh, we hear historically about a shot that rings out throughout the world that happened during the Revolutionary War. This was the shot of our age heard around the world. Now all of humanity has been forced to no longer be on the fence and to realize you can be on the side of this good man with a good family who spent all of his time, keep in mind, he was 31 years old. You could be on the side of this good man and his good family who were peacefully going from campus to campus to campus to revive a tradition that used to be part of America, and that is, even if you disagree with me, let's talk. Let's talk. Maybe I'm wrong. Prove it to me, please. Or maybe you'll have some insight on what I have to say. That is America. That is the only America. That is what America was. That is the only America that will survive into the future. At this point, you can be on the side of that goodness, or you can be on the side of individuals who, if you disagree with them, they will kill you. Choose your side carefully, because the first side is the side of God. The second side is the side of the demonic. So, before we even dive into what we are going to do today, we honor this great man who will be remembered for a very long time, and more for whom, his one voice was silenced, evilly silenced. You see, why do you silence a voice like this? It's because you're too stupid to engage in debate with him. Let me state that again. When there is a man like this who is simply engaging in dialogue peacefully, and you choose to kill him because he's such a threat to you, it's because you are now showing the world everything you believe in, every idea you have, the totality of your worldview is so stupid, so evil, that in open debate, using only the power of your mouth and your intellect, since you've convinced yourself you have one, it cannot win using simply that, intellect and mouth. So therefore you have to evilly, viciously, violently silence your opponents for good. In doing this, of course, what has happened? What has happened? What is the aftermath of this? The practical aftermath of this? Now the entire earth has woken up and realized exactly what I said. These evil people who were opposed to such individuals, and he's only one, but still, he's the one who paid the ultimate sacrifice this last week. These evil people who thought they would silence this one voice has now awoken the voices of tens of millions of people. With this one act, these evil people have now accomplished not just the opposite of what they wanted, but the opposite of what they wanted 100 million-fold. Now the earth sees these evil people, and what are they? Let's just be blunt as we can be. These are communists, these are leftists, these are liberals, these are the more extreme parts. Really, now they become the core of the Democratic Party in America. They're also replicated in other countries, you understand. These same evil people with the same mindset exist all throughout the nations of Europe and Australia and Canada, etc., etc. These people have exposed themselves now for the evil that they are. Guess what? As a result of this action that the evil people are celebrating now, even the eyes of the NPCs have opened. The eyes of everyone who has any bit of decency in them have opened, and the whole world is now rallying against these evil leftists. The mask is gone. The cute little smiling hippie mask of the 60s is gone. And now we're seeing what was behind the mask. It's the devil. It's evil incarnate. This is what this incident has shown us. That now people out there who have tried to pretend, oh, I'm neutral, oh, there's good and bad on both sides. That was never true. There is good and there is evil. The good is very good. And the evil is worse than your worst nightmares. Now you choose which side you're on. And I can tell you, we are on the side of Dharma. So, we thank Charlie Kirk for the work that he did. We know that he is in a wonderful place now. We know that he is in a wonderful place now. And with that, what I would like to do is to just offer a little bit of silence, just for about 10-15 seconds, in which we think of, remember, and honor this great young man who gave his life for free speech. Everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Thank you, Charlie, for giving us victory. Very good. With that, we are now going to go on through the Purusha Sukta. And we've done 15 verses thus far of what are 24 verses. And now we're going to be going through verse 16. So this is Rig Veda, and very specifically, this is the 10th mandala, chapter 90, and this is verse 16. And the verse proceeds in this way. I know through intuitive experience this great Purusha, the Supreme Person, the Wise One, who, having created the various forms, rupani, and the nomenclatures, namani, for those forms, deals with them by those names, and who is beyond darkness and is brilliant like the sun. Beautiful, beautiful verse. And of course, this is talking about the nature of God. I'm not going to repeat what I have repeated several times in summation of the Purusha Sukta, but let me just say this, at least, that indeed what the Purusha Sukta is talking about is indeed divine ontology. It's talking about the nature of God, but in a very specific form, God in a very specific form, and that is as God is the Purusha, as God is the Virat Purusha, sometimes known as the Vishvarupa, that is as the very soul behind our universe. And again, this is replicated from universe to universe to universe to universe again and again. But ultimately, in addition to being that specific, very often throughout these verses are talking about God in general, and indeed what are some of the divine attributes, and indeed what I call divine ontology, the divine makeup, one could say, of God. So here it becomes very interesting. In fact, let me just back up for a minute. Let me not even dive into this yet, because there is something I want to speak about. For those individuals who are seriously conversant with the Vedic scriptures, who have read at least the main works, let's say, of the Shruti literature and the Smriti literature, and who truly understand the difference between the two, and have looked at the different moods of the different scriptures. Because again, I've said this again and again, something that's so simple, yet it confounds the minds of so many people, including some great scholars, but really is understood in a very simple way, and that is each scripture has its own mood, has its own purpose, has its own reason for being, a specific message that it's trying to convey, a specific task that it's trying to accomplish. This is true for books in general, is it not? A book on motorcycle maintenance is not the same as a book on poetry, is not the same as a book on history, and on and on and on. Yet they're all books. Well, similar with the Vedic scriptures. Now, when we look at the whole of the Samhita literature, that is the four Vedas, and specifically the most important of them, traditionally what's always considered the most important, the Rig Veda, we see that the writing of the Rig Veda is something very different from later philosophical writings. And as a result, people, of course, that is modern scholars in the last 200 years, will try to pretend that there is a disconnect between Rig Veda versus, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, etc., etc., etc. And of course, what actual legitimate practitioners have tried to explain for a very long time is that no, there's no contradiction, there is just a difference in emphasis. And truthfully, you find that the essence of all the scriptures is exactly the same. Well, the Purusha Sukta itself, which is a part of the Rig Veda, always has been, shows this. While most of the Rig Veda is indeed comprised of hymns to the various devas, many to Indra, but then many of the other devas as well, what we also find is this section of Rig Veda, which when you read it, it replicates perfectly the teachings of Sanatana Dharma that we find in all of the other scriptures. Not only is there no contradiction, there's confirmation of things that we know. So why am I saying all this? Because we've seen this several times, but now especially also we see this again. What is said in this verse of the Purusha Sukta, we have heard again and again and again throughout the Puranas, throughout Mahabharata, many different places. So again, we see that divine golden thread that is there throughout the totality of the Vedic scriptures. So thus, what do I always repeat? Which needs to be repeated, which so sad, not even the more knowledgeable gurus today have ever even said once. I'm the first and seemingly still the only person who says this. All of the Vedic scriptures speak with one voice. Now, all that being said, now let's dive into this verse, where again, for those who are even a little bit conversant with the Vedic scriptures, you've heard this again and again in different ways. So first of all, I know through intuitive experience this great Purusha, the Supreme Person. First of all, indeed, just to repeat, what does Purusha mean? It means the Supreme Person. And there are various ways of saying this. Adi Purusha, Purusha Uttama, or Purushottama. There are many ways in which we can say this, the Supreme Person. This is the being who is being described all throughout here. But it's interesting that I know through intuitive experience this great Purusha. So this is in a way a mini epistemological clause in which what is being said is that indeed we first of all can know. You see, to say I know X is to infer that I can know X. How can I say I know X but X cannot be known? No, if I know X, that means that by default X can be known, therefore I know X. So this is the first thing to understand about this very simple statement. I know this great Purusha. So this Purusha, the Supreme Being, can be known. So again, what is Purusha? God. God can be known. Thus, I know God. I know this Purusha. I know this Supreme Person. Why am I emphasizing this so much? Because this is something that's crucial. For any of us who are on the philosophical journey to know the truth, truth with a capital T, and God is truth. That is, for any of us who wishes to know God. I want to know God. I want to know God. I want to know God. Any legitimate philosophical and spiritual journey begins with this. I want to know God. That's why I'm going to join a monastery. That's why I'm going to start reading every book that I can find. That's why I'm going to start praying. That's why I'm going to start meditating. That's why I am going to be spiritual. Why? I wish to know God. Now, what does it mean with that understanding if God can't be known? And I'm claiming I want to know something. Oh, I want to go. My whole desire, I'm endeavoring all my life. I wanted to go to this place. Oh, but such a place cannot be gone to. What am I doing? What am I doing? It's an impossibility to go to that place. As soon as you get within 1 mile, somehow it mysteriously disappears from your sight. There's an island you've wanted to go to all your life, and you are desperate to get there. And you've collected money, and you've worked toward going, and you've read about it, and you've studied. And every time you get within 1 mile, it just kind of disappears. Where is it? Then what are you doing? Why are you endeavoring to achieve something you cannot achieve? So with this understanding, if we truly wish to know God, now you see, this begs the question. If you truly wish to know God, again, understanding what God means, truly understanding what God means, and the vastness of such a statement, the magnitude of such a statement. I want to know that which is the source of all things. I want to know God. That being the case, the question is already answered. Can I know God? Of course, it must be the case that God can be known. That being the case, therefore I wish to know that, knowing that in time I will. In time I will. So indeed, for those individuals who are on the path, and this is why I'm saying this, I never say anything for no reason. This is why I'm saying all this. For those of you who are on the path and your goal is to know God, please be sincere. Please never give up. Please do everything that you need to. Do everything that you need to continue to want to know God, and you will. You will. God is not that island which when you get a mile away from it and at long last, I can be in that place that I've yearned to be for so long, the island just disappears. That's cruelty. God is not cruel. God is love. If you wish to truly know God, you'll know God. But now let's go on. I know through intuitive experience this great Purusha, the Supreme Person. Now comes these beautiful qualifiers. Oh, what is the Supreme Purusha? And again, it kind of goes a little bit deeper. It kind of explains why should you know this Supreme Purusha, the Supreme Person. It's because God is all this that now is going to be described. Because God is the wise one. Now, what does that mean? Oh, again, anthropomorphism. The idea that we try to see God in our image. That as small as we are, the things we need to do, we try to project that onto God. Human beings are very good at projection. We like to project that onto God. Oh, the wise one. What does that mean? Oh, my Lord, God knows how many books God must have read. God is the source of all wisdom. Before the very concept of a book even existed, God was the source of all wisdom. God doesn't need to accumulate wisdom. God gives us whatever wisdom we have. That is the nature of God. So thus, again, this being who we wish to know, this is what this being is, the source of all that is wise. But now let's go on. Who, and now this is the part that philosophically I find especially interesting, who, having created the various forms and the nomenclatures for those forms, nama and rupa, or in this case reversed, rupa and nama. This is something that we find in almost every Vedic scripture. That is sizable enough that almost inevitably you'll hear this term, specifically nama rupa, that every existent thing has form and has name. It has a form that is that by which, through sensory or perceptual, I should say, not sensory, that through which perceptual experience you can know that it is this and not that. But more, something by which you can then designate it, and that is name. So there is form, there is name. Everything in existence has form, has name. Now, this is what's interesting. Some people make the mistake, and Advaitins specifically, because, Advaita is not a very deep philosophy. They make the mistake of thinking that the Vedic scriptures exclusively say that no, only material things have name and form. No, only material things have material name and form. The scriptures make that clear. The scriptures also make clear, and please listen to me, especially anyone in the audience. No one here in our congregation, our temple is, but anyone in the audience who you happened upon our channel. Anyone who does not know what I'm about to say, please pay very careful attention. The Vedic scriptures also make very clear in scripture after scripture after scripture that spiritual phenomena also have name and form, but they are spiritual name and form, and they are eternal. God has a form, but no, as I've said jokingly, just to drive the point home, not a yucky form like you have. God doesn't have a yucky form like you. You see, that's why people have a difficult time imagining God with form, even spiritual form, even form that is comprised of consciousness. It's because they think of themselves. No, God doesn't have a yucky material form. God has spiritual form, and it is form that is perfect, that is pure, and that is of the nature of the eternal. It's eternally God's form. And more, every scripture makes this clear. God has nama, and anything spiritual has nama. Nama. What does that mean? What's that word in English? Name. Yes, the word name comes from Sanskrit, nama. Nama. In fact, indeed, in many European languages, actually the word for name is nama. Look it up. It's very interesting. So, in any case, God has eternal name. How many Vedic scriptures exclaim this? All of them. Certainly the Puranas, certainly Mahabharata, certainly Bhagavad Gita, certainly Ramayana, and on and on and on. So, Nama and Rupa, in its originating form, is spiritual, and it pertains to that which is spiritual phenomena. So God has eternal form, in fact, for that matter, multiple forms, because this is God. God also has eternal spiritual name. This is true also for us as Atman. We have our own form. This is called Svarupa, to use the technical term. Each Atman has Svarupa. That means literally one's own form, the true form, the eternal form. We have a way that we look. In other words, no, not to these eyes. No. Consciousness perceiving consciousness. We have a way in which you can tell this is this Atman, not that Atman, not that Atman. And more, we each have an eternal nama, an eternal name. And I've spoken about this before. So there is spiritual form, spiritual name, which even God has. But then there's material form, material name, which is of the nature of the temporal. So, right now we have a specific body, a specific way we look, our face, our hair, our this, our that, etc. Oh, that changes from body to body to body as we reincarnate. For that matter, in this very life it changes. If we're, just to pick an age, if we're 50, we don't look now the way we did when we were 5, when we were 5 months, when we were 5 days, etc. The physical form changes, but that's physical. The name is pretty much arbitrary. We can have been given a name by our parents. They could have picked another name. We can legally change our name, etc. We are still us. But that's material nama rupa. That's material name and form. Spiritually, on the other hand, it's a very, very different question. So now, with that understanding, let's look at this again. So, speaking now of God, who, having created the various forms and the nomenclatures, names, for those forms, deals with them by those names. Interesting. This is an interesting clause. He, God, we're talking about. Make no mistake, we're talking about God. Deals with them by those names. What are we talking about here? Pick a name. Oh, Julie. Okay. God deals with Julie as Julie, by the name Julie. Is this what this verse is saying? Of course not. That would be silly. That would be contradictory. Why? Because we said the name is arbitrary. Oh yes, names, material names are useful. You know, again, I've said, oh, I have a glass of water here. Water, agua, pani, different words. You know, there's no one specific word that goes along with the essence of what this is. So we're not talking about something material. We're not talking about material names. Rather, he deals with them by what names? Spiritual names. In other words, God deals with everything, single thing, in accordance with what they actually are and their true eternal name. That is what's being said here. Something infinitely more in depth than, and again, you need to trust me, or you can not trust me. It doesn't really matter. Again, I have a PhD in this. I've read all the literature on Purusha Sukta. I've read books about it written by long dead Indologists. I've read modern swamis who actually got it even more wrong than the silly Indologists, etc., etc. And it's amazing how these little philosophical, crucial subtleties, none of them got. None of them got. Why? Lack of spiritual insight. Lack of spiritual insight, what we spoke about in the past. You're going to read the Vedic scriptures, you can't read them like a comic book. I know I've repeated this many times, but maybe now it's coming back home for people and people can truly understand this. You need to contemplate through spiritual insight, using one's spiritual vision, what these scriptures are actually saying. Then you understand perfectly the deep philosophical content of every single word. So thus this little clause deals with them by those names. Anybody would just assume that names, oh yes, the material names. It's not what's being said, because the material names are meaningless for God. God deals with them via the essence of what they are. God deals with humans. God deals with elephants. God deals with cats. God deals with roses. God deals with on and on and on. Not in accordance with the name that we ascribe to them, but what they actually are called in the language of God. So thus he deals with them. So let's go on. Continuing with divine ontology, describing what is the actual nature of God. And who is beyond darkness. Let's stop there. Okay, all the silly little infantile, immature little baby Crowleyans who are out there, Thelema people, beyond good and evil, beyond good and evil, beyond good and evil, beyond good and evil. Nowhere in the Vedic scriptures do you find this phrase beyond good and evil. Nowhere. What do you find? Who is beyond darkness? Darkness and light? No. Who is beyond darkness? The Vedic scriptures, again, speak with one voice. Evil is evil. Evil is to be rejected. The Vedic scriptures, and they do have a voice, actually. There have been times within the Vedic scriptures where the Vedic scriptures will speak. The Vedic scriptures personified and as a union will speak. So when I say voice in relationship to the Vedic scriptures, it's not just poetic. Again, I know what I'm saying. The Vedic scriptures have the ability to choose collectively to speak. And if the Vedic scriptures could actually speak to us today in an audible voice, they would say evil, darkness is the very opposite of all that we represent. As they are saying here, God, who is beyond darkness, darkness alone, evil alone, is oppositional to God, and now continuing to explain the nature of God, and who is what? Whose very essence is the very opposite of that darkness that God rejects, and is brilliant like the sun. This Purusha is brilliant like the sun. Again, poetry. Poetry is beautiful. Poetry is that finger pointing to something great and beyond itself. Poetry is beautiful. Poetry can be used as a tool to point you in the right direction. Via poetry, via beauty that is expressed in verbal form, that explains to you something that cannot be explained merely by your observing it with your senses alone. Now, via beautiful words and poetry, something is occurring to you beyond your senses. But what happens when, instead of hearing that poetry and seeing that to which the poetry is pointing, you instead focus on the poetry itself? This is the difficulty. We've heard things like this. Oh, God is brilliant like the sun. God is more bright than 1,000 suns rising simultaneously, etc. And it gets to the point where we only hear the words without really understanding even a fraction of what's being said. Do we understand how powerful the sun is? Do we understand how brilliant the sun is? If not, please contemplate this. And what is this saying? Brilliant like the sun. Just like the sun? Sun and Surya, please excuse me for saying this. I'm only saying this in order to bring home the point. The sun, the brilliance of the sun is insignificant in comparison to the brilliance of God. Indeed. So here it is said in Rig Veda that Purusha, that Supreme Person, is brilliant like the sun. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's explained that Krishna is as brilliant as 1,000 suns rising simultaneously. Does that even do justice to explaining the brilliance of God? Of course we understand, no. So indeed, we need to really contemplate, not just get lost in the poetry. Oh, that sounds so nice. It does for a purpose, to point you to God. Don't get lost in the finger. Oh, the finger is so beautiful, and the finger's pointing. Oh, how nice. Oh, look, it seems to be pointing at something. It's so nice how it points. It does a good job pointing. Very expert, very nice. And you contemplate the finger, and never look at what the finger is trying to tell you. In the same way, this poetry is beautiful, brilliant as the sun. But if we can understand that God is the source of all light, this is what God is. And in the face of whom all darkness, all evil recedes into the nothingness from whence it came. That is the nature of God. Beautiful, beautiful verse, verse 16. All right, Rukmini, what did I say to you out there before we started?
We're going to try to get through 2 verses.
All right, we're going to get through 1 verse today. It was my goal to get through 2 verses, but indeed I think these verses of the Purusha Sukta are especially important and philosophical and deep, as we can see. Again, a person could read this verse in 7 seconds or something like that, and that's what most people would do. But truthfully, this is the short commentary on this verse, as you can imagine. This is the short commentary. We could have gone longer. We could have spent easily another several hours, actually, as I look at this, just on this 1 verse. But we're going to stop here on this 1 verse, and indeed, we are over time. I would like to possibly take some questions from the audience. So indeed, if there are any questions, just for a few minutes. I don't want to keep people for too long, What if for maybe 5 or 10 minutes? There are some questions. Please feel free to ask. And indeed, it would be my pleasure to answer any questions that people have, either here in the audience or in the online audience or anywhere. Very nice. Some good questions are pouring in. I will start with this, which is actually 2 questions, but they're both quite good. Namaste, Shri Acharyaji. Is it okay to rest your back up against a wall while meditating? What is the dharmic view about war? Good. 2 very good questions, actually. Philosophical. Well, one practical, one philosophical. So first of all, is it okay to rest your back up against a wall while meditating? If there is no choice, then yes. I've said to people many times, a person, there are so many stereotypes about meditation, including the idea that people have that, you have to be as uncomfortable as possible. Because often you'll see images of people and they look very uncomfortable, very straight back, and they're just seated like this. And the truth of the matter is, actually, I'm describing kind of how I meditate, how I sit when I meditate. But the truth of the matter is, it takes a lot of practice. You see, for me, actually sitting with my back erect, and right now I'm sitting in a seat, obviously, but I don't always. Indeed, at one point, when I was much younger, I used nothing, not even a cushion or anything. I would just sit on a mat on the ground, a flat mat on the ground, and indeed, in perfect Padmasana, extremely straight back. And when I meditated, even if it was for an hour, more, 2 hours, I didn't move. I just was still like a statue. But the thing is, again, it took many years of practice to do that. And to this day, still, I still meditate in a way where, it's very disciplined, actually, how I sit and everything. I don't slump over or anything like that. But again, the point is it takes time to get to that. So several things to say. In the beginning, if you're not accustomed to sitting without a backrest and in a very erect sort of way like this, then it will take practice. In the meantime, if you need to use a wall, that's fine. But with the idea that you also begin to do asanas, you also begin to do yoga. And very specifically, what's extremely helpful is Surya Namaskara. You do this several times a day, day after day after day, and you'll see that sitting in a truly meditative way and without a back support gets easier and easier. That's the first thing. Second thing is some people just have a specific medical issue. People are different. For some people, they have pains in the back that maybe won't go away. They've had some injury or something like that. Well, if you need to use a backrest, that is fine. That is fine. So there is the ideal as far as how to sit. But if you can't meet that ideal, all right, maybe do something a little easier. Do something a little easier. And all with this in mind, that this is the most important thing, that you meditate. That's the important thing. So if it's a matter of, my Lord, I need to sit with my back against the wall, and why even bother meditating? No, sit with your back against the wall. I've told people, sit in a regular chair with, indeed, your legs hanging down, your feet touching the ground, if you have to, as long as you meditate. That's the important thing. So it's just a matter of, good, better, best. But as long as you're meditating, it's all good. That's the important thing. So I hope that answers that question. As far as the dharmic view of war, I can speak about that philosophically, actually. I have several times. War is horrible. Nobody's in favor of war. War is the last recourse of any people, any nation, etc. War of offense, pure offensive war is something that's wrong. Just pure imperialistic war, going to war with neighbors who are peaceful just to take over their land. Imperialistic sort of wars like this are never looked upon in a good way in the Vedic scriptures. Defensive wars, on the other hand, are something very different. War for a truly righteous cause, so righteous war theory we support. There's an actual doctrine called righteous war theory that you find in the West. Well, we support something similar. That is, if you have a righteous war, your nation is being attacked, your people are being killed, etc., etc., your things are being stolen, well, then you have a right to go to war. And not with the idea, even then, of annihilating your opponents. No, with the idea of defending your nation, defending your people, etc. So there is such a thing as going to war. And the highest ideal is the idea of not just going to war to defend your people, but also to defend Dharma as well. So if you have specifically aggressive, violent, evil, adharmic forces of evil, that are little by little conquering the world, well, yourself being on the side of Dharma, you have the ability and indeed the duty to engage in a dharmic war, a righteous war, in order to defend good, to defend truth. So that's the idea of war in accordance with Sanatana Dharma. Very good. I see some more nice questions here. Very nice. Here's a very nice question from one of our favorite people. It's Namaste Acharyaji. God bless you, and KC. Not quite sure what.
CK, Charlie.
I see. Oh, okay. CK, Charlie Kirk. Yes. Thank you very much. At first I wasn't sure. I think CK because I always think Krishna consciousness. So in my mind, I see now it's CK, and in my mind I reversed it to KC, Krishna consciousness. That tells you where my mind is. All right, so let me read this again. Namaste Acharyaji. God bless you, and CK. Indeed. Thank you so much for saying that. Is Atma Jnana what Advaita calls non-dual realization? And is this where Advaita stops in attainment? Are we to achieve this before God realization? Good question. This is a very technical question, actually. This is indeed a very technical question. So let me go into this a little bit. First, let me just start by simply answering the question, and then I'll explain why it's the answer. No, they're not quite the same. The idea of Atma Jnana, as explained in the scriptures, is not the same as non-dual realization, as is being explained in Advaita. Either real Advaita, meaning the actual teachings of Shankara, or what to speak of more modern sort of watered-down versions of Advaita. So non-dual realization is not the same as Atma Jnana. There is a connection between the two, and that is that you must also have Atma Jnana, that is realization of self, in order to achieve this state of what in contemporary Advaita at least is called non-dual realization. However, the philosophical and theological implications and the realization also thereof are completely different. With traditional Atma Jnana, and Atma Jnana, that is knowledge of self, self-realization, has always been there and is a traditional route in Sanatana Dharma. It's discussed in Bhagavad Gita, it's discussed in so many places. But it's with the idea that you understand that there are these two elements, Atman and Paramatman, and your goal is simply realizing Atman. And traditionally the idea would be that, indeed, you would have self-realization. Upon having self-realization, at that point, technically you have liberation. Because technically, according to all the rishis, including especially Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, what is the definition of liberation? It's kaivalya. It's separation of that which is consciousness from that which is materiality. Once you have that, technically you have liberation. You have moksha, you have mukti. But it's always been with the understanding that, yes, this is one thing that I can achieve, but it's not the same as also realizing God. That was the traditional understanding. Indeed, that's the understanding of Patanjali himself. At some point in the future, because I know the Yoga Sutras probably more intimately than anyone, I'm in the process of translating it right now from the Sanskrit. At some point in the future, I'll do a full live stream commentary, multiple series commentary on the Yoga Sutras. But this is also the understanding of Patanjali, that there is self-realization, but it's not something that you mix up with also God consciousness. This is the distinction between that versus Advaita. The idea of Atman realization and God consciousness are mixed up. They think they're both the same thing, and that's the difficulty. So in that mix, is self-realization there? Oh yes. So in other words, an Advaitin truly following, no, not modern neo-Advaita and made up New Age nonsense. No, following the actual teachings of Shankaracharya in accordance with the Vedic tradition, an Advaitin can achieve liberation. I've said this many times. They can have that Atma-jnana, that separational understanding and comprehension of themselves as consciousness versus that which is insentient, thus achieving liberation. And Advaitin can achieve that. This is the only difficulty, is that then that's all they can achieve because their conception of God is warped. Their conception, of course, is that I am God, my Atman is God, therefore, in achieving this self-realization, somehow God consciousness is also mixed in there because I am God. Now, you see, this is, if you can understand this, this is why, again, this is explained by many of the great acharyas. This is how such an individual can achieve liberation technically. That is, they will not re-enter samsara, the cycle of reincarnation. They will achieve liberation, but meaning what? They will go backwards spiritually, meaning, where did we start?
Brahmajyoti.
Yes. As Atmans, as we find ourselves now, we started in the Brahmajyoti. The idea is that whether we fall down into the material world, whether we don't, we're meant to continue growing spiritually to the point of Vaikuntha. Well, for Vaishnavas, that's what we do. The Atman was in the Brahmajyoti, they fall into the material world, they eventually become devotees and practice bhakti. They not only achieve liberation, but they go past the Brahmajyoti to Vaikuntha and understand God personally. With the Advaitin, because they're all mixed up, they'll have liberation, but they have gone from Brahmajyoti to down the material world. Now their liberation is going back to the Brahmajyoti, is going back to this more impersonal spiritual sphere. Is it spiritual? Yes. Is it untainted by materiality? Yes. But spiritually speaking, they've gone back to that quiescent state previous to their fall into the material world, rather than progressing on to something even higher than the Brahmajyoti. So that's the difficulty. You had a question?
So then they could fall down again from the Brahmajyoti, right?
Exactly. For those who didn't hear, she asked, so they can fall down again from the Brahmajyoti? That is exactly the problem. That the Advaitin, having achieved self-realization, but again with this mixed idea of what is God. Oh, yes, I realize my Atman and that Atman is God. They'll have liberation. They'll go back to the Brahmajyoti, but because they have gone backwards, they still can fall back down into the material world. For the Vaishnava who goes directly to Vaikuntha, once we're in Vaikuntha, there is no falling down. And let me be clear about this, because sometimes, not really large groups, there's only one organization in all of Sanatana Dharma who disagrees with that, and that is ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Every Vaishnava outside of this one specific organization agrees with what I just said. We fall down from the Brahmajyoti. Once you have liberation, once you're in Vaikuntha, as Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, as is repeated in all the scriptures, once you're in Vaikuntha, you do not fall down again. There is one organization, Vaishnava organization on earth, who teaches that we actually fell down from Vaikuntha. That's ISKCON. And I've had to make this clear to people. People sometimes make the mistake and say, oh, no, we Gaudiya Vaishnavas believe we fell from Vaikuntha. No, Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't believe that. I know every Gaudiya Vaishnava organization on earth. In fact, I met the leaders of many of them. Indeed, I met the leader of the entire Gaudiya Mata when I was in India in 1985, the organization founded by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. No Gaudiya Vaishnavas accept this, that we fell down from Vaikuntha. They all say the exact same thing as every other Vaishnava. We fell down from Brahmajyoti. Even among Gaudiyas. And, oh, are you a Gaudiya Vaishnava and you don't believe me? Then I will give you a nice little challenge. Go to leaders of the Gaudiya Mata. Go to leaders of other Gaudiya Vaishnava organizations. They will tell you the same thing. No, we fell from Brahmajyoti. No, we fell from Brahmajyoti. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati taught this. Bhakti Vinod Thakur especially taught this in Jaiva Dharma and many other places. Only ISKCON teaches this. And sometimes by misinterpreting various statements that Prabhupada made, they'll claim that Prabhupada said this. Prabhupada never said this. He also believed that we fell from the Brahmajyoti. So literally you can't even say, oh, well, Gaudiya Vaishnavas believe we fell from Vaikuntha. No. No. Again, I've spoken to leaders of countless Gaudiya Vaishnava organizations. None of them believe this. They all say the same. All Vaishnavas, real Vaishnavas, are on the same page. We originate in Brahmajyoti. 3/4 of Atmans go on directly to Vaikuntha. 1/4 fall into Maya, into illusion. Of those in illusion, those who achieve true liberation as bhaktas go to Vaikuntha. Having achieved Vaikuntha, you never fall down. Period. There is no Vaishnava guru, organization, sampradaya, parampara, organization outside of ISKCON that believes this. Not even other Gaudiyas. So, very important for people to understand. Very good. And all of that, and I didn't even read his full question. I just realized here. Okay. Too enthusiastic. So is Atmagyana what Advaita calls non-dual realization? I answered that, I think. And is this where Advaita stops in attainment? I think I answered that. And are we to achieve this first before God realization? Indeed. Yes. This is the sequential two-tiered process of liberation. First we achieve self-realization, Atma-jnana, and then secondarily, we achieve God consciousness. So it has to happen in this way. Brahma Vidya, God consciousness, comes second. Because why? Very simple. You know, as I and many legitimate gurus of the past have said, first you must know the knower. Before you can know that object, so-called, of knowledge, that is God, first you have to know you. You have to know who is knowing. So first we have self-realization, then God consciousness. So, hope that answers the question for you. And maybe I'll see if I can answer one more question. And then we'll end at that point because we've been going on for an hour and a half. Very nice. This is a three-parter, but I believe I can answer this pretty quickly, actually, because it's about the situation that is occurring presently in Nepal. And for people who are on our Discord server, and that's a hint, join our Discord server. For people who are on our Discord server, last week I gave a talk on there where for about half an hour, and very in-depth, I talked about what is happening in Nepal right now, and maybe we'll make that available to the public. It's been recorded. All my talks on Discord are always recorded, but they're not always released. But let me read this and then I'll comment. Namaste Shri Acharyaji, please accept my humble obeisances, and likewise. I seek your guidance with utmost respect. Nepal has always been a dharmic nation, yet since it was declared a secular nation, secular country, many youths are becoming increasingly uninterested in Dharma. Let me just stop there for a second. Is that surprising? Is that surprising? No. No, young people are innocent. You know, they know what they're taught. They know what is taught to them by people who are supposedly their elders. So when those elders are no longer truly wise people and are brain-dead, evil communists, they'll start to believe what they're being told. So just had to throw that in there. So they're becoming increasingly uninterested in Dharma. While exploitative conversions continue to spread by taking advantage of poverty and sickness. That's how they often do it. What would be your message to the youth on the importance of dharmic knowledge and the risks of ignoring such conversions for our nation's future? Very good. This will be the last thing that I will answer, even though I see there's a little bit more. And let me truly answer this in this way. It's not a matter of merely the youth. This is a similar question to what I have heard for 50 years from Indian parents as well. And it's a little bit different for Indian parents. What they ask is just generally, oh, Acharyaji, our children just seem to have no interest in our traditions, in Sanatana Dharma, in Hinduism. Even though we try to maintain vegetarianism in our household, we know that they go to McDonald's and eat meat, etc. And they just have no interest in this. They just think it's old-fashioned, fuddy-duddy things, and etc. What are we to do? What are we to do? And in a way, I'm going to give a similar answer to what I give to Indian parents when they ask me that. And that is this, that it truly does begin with what I said a moment ago. You can't blame the youth. They see those people who are supposedly adults. They see the people who are supposed to be their mentors. They see those people in their own family, yes, their own parents, their own uncles and aunties, etc. But they see people in high government positions. They see people in business. They see people who are supposed to be serving as an example. And whatever they see, they will not just imitate, but more. They will also see really intuitively. Young people are very intuitive. That's why it's been said again and again. It's not just what you say. They see what you do. They see what you do. So this has been the problem, is that the adults, let me just state this bluntly. The moment that the communists took over Nepal, the adults of Nepal should have done something about it, and swiftly, and eradicated them swiftly. And they should have redoubled all the good things that they were doing. They should have given their children a proper education. But more than anything, what is Nepal missing? You see, why did this happen to begin with? There's a reason why this happened to begin with. While the royal family were overthrown, why it is that communists came to power there. And indeed, Nepal became a radically, secular is putting it nicely. Secular has the idea of being neutral and objective. No, Nepal became an anti-Hindu state, as India was for most of its existence. And we need to understand that. We need to ask the question, why did that happen to begin with? It's because it got to the point where in Nepal, just like in India, same thing, Hinduism became nothing more than a word and an identity. Oh, I'm a Telugu speaker. I'm Gujarati. Oh, I'm Hindu. It meant nothing more. It was just an identity. Rather, what it means to practice Sanatana Dharma has always been the same, but it's changed recently, meaning, in the last century or maybe two. What it means to be a follower of Sanatana Dharma is, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your varna, what your caste, it doesn't matter if you're rich, doesn't matter if you're poor. It means that you are on fire to know God and to know truth and to serve truth. That truth is otherwise known as Dharma. In other words, spirituality ceased to be something alive in people. It just became an identity. Oh, what are you? Let me see. Well, I'm not Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm not. I'm Hindu, I guess. That's it. It became an identifier. Rather, when an individual says, I am a follower of Sanatana Dharma, what it means is that they are someone who wants to live truth. That it's a passion for them. It's a personal passion for them. It means that they want to know God. It means they're in love with God. It means that serving God means more to them than life itself. You see, you speak to a religious Christian, that's what they'll tell you. You want to talk about conversions. You speak to a religious Christian, they'll tell you, I'm on fire in love with Jesus. You speak to a Muslim, oh, I will do anything, I will die for Allah, and on and on and on. You speak to a follower of Sanatana Dharma and you ask them, why are you a follower of Sanatana Dharma? They'll give you different answers, and most of them wrong. But what is the real answer? Because I am a servant of Narayana. I am a servant of Bhagavan. That is why I follow Sanatana Dharma. And you see in their words, in their body language, in their eyes, you see that they mean it. That's what's been missing. That's what's been missing. So, indeed, now we understand why India became atheist after independence. Now we see why Nepal had a communist mini revolution and has been ruled by demons for all this time. And thankfully, finally, now in the last few days, in the last week, got rid of their demons, put them in their place. But why did it happen to begin with? Had faith been strong, it would not have happened. So now that it has happened, now to answer your question, how do we rekindle passion in the hearts of Nepali youth for Sanatana Dharma? You do it for yourself as the adults. And you serve as an example. And serving as an example, always serving as an example first. Secondly, you also do not spare your words. Teach your children also to be on fire. Teach them to be enthusiastic. Not, oh, what? Oh, you're dragging me to the temple again? And they're sitting there and the priest is speaking. Go to the house of worship of any other religion. And will you find a few children who are like that? Few and far between. You'll find a few. But otherwise, they make sure their children are listening. Like this. When we go to a mandir, whether it's Nepal, whether it's India, whether it's in Guyana, whether it's in Trinidad, whether it's in North America, wherever it is, when we go to a mandir, it needs to get to the point where if you go there on a day when there is a guru, hopefully a true guru, Swami, someone speaking and teaching Sanatana Dharma, every person in that audience from the age of 1 to 101 are like this. Then you have a religion that is alive. Now, let me deal with the process of conversion, because this has been a big problem. The reason why the converters, why the missionaries win is exactly that. Their people are like this. And our people are not. You want to stop the conversions? Make our people more enthusiastic about Sanatana Dharma than the Christians are about Christianity. Then, and only then, will not only the conversions stop, we'll start to bring some Christians and Muslims over to our side. Which in the ISDS we have. So I hope that answers the question. What has happened in Nepal is something wonderful. Again, the demons have been overturned. Vinashaya dushkritam. The demons have been overturned. But now let's make sure that indeed Nepal goes back to being a Dharma Rashtra, a Dharma nation. And that's up to anyone who is in Nepal. Anyone who has any position of authority, anyone with any education, anyone with any enthusiasm. You don't have the enthusiasm, get the enthusiasm. Become a vegetarian. I know that vegetarianism, even among Hindus, is less popular. I know all of this. I know all about South Asia and all the communities thereof. I know that in Nepal, vegetarianism is not as strong, even among religious Hindus, as in India. It's only because of the climate, etc. Today, there's no excuse. If you're Hindu in Nepal, become vegetarian. Begin doing puja every single day. Begin reading, studying the Vedic scriptures. introduce all of Nepal and all Nepali Hindus to our channel, the Dharma Nation channel. Have them start watching. They will then rekindle their fire for Sanatana Dharma in their hearts. Have the Hindus of Nepal practice this with one goal. I am doing this to know and to serve and to love God, Bhagavan. And have this be true for the adults. Have this be true for the youth. Have them be on fire for Sanatana Dharma. And let me tell you, Nepal will once again become a Dharma Rashtra. It will be a Dharma nation and hopefully a constitutional monarchy again. Because that is the future. Such that Dharma Rashtra of Nepal will last for the next 10,000 years. So this is what we do. Nepal is great, and the people of Nepal are great. Now let them create a great Dharma nation. Everyone together. Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
And Nepal Jayate.
Nepal Jayate.
Very good. I hope that answers your very sincere questions. Thank you for asking. Good. So with that, indeed, we're going to stop here. I know there are more questions, but we've been going on for a long time at this point. Thank you all so very, very much for attending this live stream satsangha. This is what we do every week, is we dive deeply into the Vedic scriptures, which is the basis of our religion of Sanatana Dharma. And indeed, let me just say, if you have not joined our Discord server yet, what are you waiting for? Hopefully I believe, yes, the link is up there. Follow that link if you want to know more about Sanatana Dharma and begin to practice it in a meaningful way. Join our Discord server. Visit dharmacentral.com if you can. When you are there, you'll see many of our books are available, such as Sanatana Dharma, The Eternal Natural Way, but many books. We have 13 books we've published so far. Please donate to the International Sanatana Dharma Society. This is a movement, as you can see, and indeed, it is a movement that is on fire to restore Sanatana Dharma to every corner of this earth. Please help us in any way you can. Donate, one-time donation if you can. Become a member of the ISDS if you can. And you can become a monthly tithing member. You can do both by going again to dharmacentral.com. And with that, everyone, we will stop here. Next week, we'll go to the second verse that we were supposed to do this time. But we'll continue with Purusha Sukta until we are done, whenever that is. And I ask you all, everyone, in the meantime, in the interim, to please take very good care of yourselves. Namaste. And everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate.
May Dharma be victorious in every single corner of this earth. Evam bhavatu. May it be so. And for every living being listening now, I guarantee you that it shall be so. Dharma will be victorious. And as I have been leaving you now for some time every week, I give you these blessed words of Bhagavan Sri Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 66, wherein he says in the Sanskrita, Ma Shuchaha, do not fear. And you understand now why I've been telling this to you for a long time. Regardless of anything that you see, regardless of anything that happens, even when one true and good leader falls before our eyes, 1,000,000 leaders will now take his place. Do not fear, for God is with us, and Dharma will be victorious. Everyone, please be joyful. Please take care.